fresh coats of paint and a weed whacker, and it's good to go.
Give me that look. Whoa. You got a plan?
Not really. Kinda thought we'd just wing it, you know, run in, guns blazing, make it up as we go.
What is this, a pirate gun?
Yeah, it's old school, man. Like you, right?
All right, let's go kill some scumbags.
Welcome to Franchise Killer, a podcast where we pick movie franchises or wannabe franchises, review them film by film, and see where things went wrong. All right.
You should have done a Russian accent for that one.
I thought about it.
Right.
I thought about it, but I couldn't, I knew it was going to come out.
Do
totally
Russians
terribly.
roll their R's?
No.
Right.
They
I
do.
don't think so.
I can't do
I
Russian.
don't think
Here,
so.
do
Welcome to Russia, Mother Russia.
I don't think they roll their R's.
I don't think they do.
That did not sound right.
That's my Spanish coming out.
Anyway, I'm Reese. To my left is...
David.
To my further left is...
Irina.
And you were actually trying to thwart old John and Jack in this movie, weren't you?
I was trying to thwart them?
Yeah, weren't you the...
Oh, that's right. That's right. There's an Irina in this.
Yeah, there you go.
That's correct.
That was.
I was like,
that was a zinger. A real
I know.
knee slap.
No, you
I
should
really-
have
I
seen
really
my
went for it.
dead face. I have
She's
no
just like,
idea
"Whoa."
what you're saying.
He could have lobbed it over the plate like a softball, but instead he fast
Yeah,
pitched
I
it.
kind of know what it feels like to be you now, David.
Yeah, it's being thrown under the bus.
No, I just was slow on the uptake because we did comment on that while watching it that her name was Irina.
You notice how every single movie depicts, like, whenever it has a Russian villain that's a female, it's always Irina or Irene.
It is.
Or
And I think I have a theory.
Something.
I think it's because that name means peace, and they're like, "Oh, the irony."
And hilariously, the other Russian villain in this is named Yuri.
yeah, it's always Yuri.
yeah, it is.
Anyway, further off to Irina's left is...
Irina.
Oh, God.
Yeah, he had a backup for that one.
Also known as...
Noah.
And then, off in Pripyat, we have...
AJ.
Hope you're not staying there too long.
I'm outside of the exclusion zone. It's all right.
What's the weather like?
Let's see. Just a 50% chance of fallout.
Really? Not bad, huh?
AJ's been there since the 80s, so.
And
gotcha.
today, we're talking about A Good Day to Die Hard, which was originally titled Die Hard 24/7.
Ew.
I know. Gross.
20.
Honestly,
Wait, what?
They would have been better if they just combined all the Die Hard names.
Yeah.
A good day to die hard with a vengeance. Hardest.
That hardest is not in there anywhere.
That's the second movie.
I really like your title. That works, I think.
No, it's not hardest. It's harder.
Oh, that's right, because it was my idea in that episode to call the third movie Die Hardest, but they never took my advice.
They should have done that.
I didn't watch any of those movies.
They never took
Wait.
my advice retroactively.
Wait,
What?
What did AJ watch?
I thought we were doing James Bond as a franchise. This is not a Die Another Day.
I always thought this one sounded like a James Bond movie.
Man,
think
you watched
that's
a
on
way better
purpose.
movie than us.
Yeah, we were thinking about which one you'd do for this one, and James Bond definitely came up. So
I think it is intentional, though. This is basically America's James Bond, or they were trying to in some way.
yeah.
Except for he
Little
doesn't
did
play
they
by
know
no
Mission
rules.
Impossible has that.
Anyway, the only reason they changed the title of this movie from Die Hard 24/7 to A Good Day to Die Hard was because they thought people would get it confused with the TV show 24.
Actually, when you said that name, I was thinking of
Yeah,
24.
And there was actually speculation because of that it was a crossover movie, and Jack Bauer was going to make an appearance.
Look, scratch that.
Yeah.
This isn't playing well with the critics.
So how,
Which, you know,
how
after
fun would that have been, though?
After seeing this movie, I might have preferred that.
Yeah.
But A Good Day to Die Hard came out in 2013 and is directed by John Moore, who also directed Behind Enemy Lines, Max Payne, Flight of the Phoenix, and The Omen remake. The movie stars Bruce Willis, Jai Courtney, Sebastian Koch, and Juliana Snegier. Hopefully I said that right.
Yeah,
and it's
that's all
written
right.
by Skip Woods. This is the first film in the franchise not to be based off some novel or script or pamphlet or any piece of material with writing on it that was not intended.
And
for,
it shows.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, this movie was actually born from Bruce Willis's own mind, or at least the germ of the idea for this story was, and then it was written by, again, Skip Woods.
Do you think that based on a book makes it better? Having a source material?
I think in Die Hard's case, maybe it does.
Yeah,
It at
'cause that
least
was like
gives it a structure. And yeah, now they're kind of flying by the seat of their pants.
I think they were used to having this basic framework that was already kind of laid out and then just imprinting Die Hard on top of it. And this is kind of completely new territory. And it definitely shows, because this is the first movie to me that does not feel like it has any of that Die Hard formula. But we'll get into that later on. But those who are new to this show, on this podcast, we first go over our thoughts on the film before revisiting it for the episode. Then we dive into the story, break it down bit by bit, and talk about the more significant moments. Then towards the end of the show, we give our brief reviews and numbered scores, along with an analysis on the health of the franchise and whether or not this film hurt it. So, you guys, had y'all seen A Good Day to Die Hard before this episode? Irina.
I had not.
I feel like...
I didn't even realize it existed.
Yeah, this is going to be... I guarantee this is going to be a clean sweep. Unless, AJ, you surprise me for some reason.
No.
So I'll just throw it over to you.
You
Nope.
said no.
No surprises.
Has not seen it.
Yeah, I don't think any of us even knew this existed.
I'm just going to go ahead and jump in just so we're all aware. None of us had seen this.
Yeah, I've seen it either.
I did know it existed, though.
I was maybe the only one that wanted to go see it, but then the reviews came out, and it just totally dissuaded me from making any attempt to go watch it.
Yeah, like if the reviews had said like, 50%, that's kind of like, okay, I'll check it out.
Yeah,
Wait,
but
so
it could
you're
go
saying-
either way.
Are you
I
saying you
checked
know
it
what
out.
the scores are?
They were low. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It could be better.
Yeah, this is... Where do I start with this one? I guess with the story.
Do we want to do a call to action, maybe?
Yeah, let's get that call to action. Now, I can tell this movie's already going to break my brain, so
All right.
Promote it.
Honestly, I'm not going to promote this movie, but I'm going to promote us doing this movie, okay? So I know some of you out there are in your car. Some of you are going for a jog. Some of you are just sitting at your desk doing your work for whatever you do. But what I need you to do is get on your phone, get on your computer, give us a like, give us a subscribe. If you're on Apple, give us that 5-star review. Leave us a comment. I'm on the Instagram. I'm putting content out.
He's got an OnlyFans, guys.
Yeah,
Come
yeah.
on.
No, but honestly, we are here for you guys. We do it for free. We love doing it. And if you follow us or give us a subscription, Reese will do 100 push-ups for each one of those. That's a fact. He will do it.
I will not make that
You-
promise.
you will
No,
do it.
he will
Commit.
do it. He'll do it.
I will
He's saying he
film-
won't, but
I
he'll
will
do
film
it.
myself doing 5 and then repeat it 20 times.
Put it on our
Repeat the
Instagram
clip.
stories. We'll get you into shape.
Have your
Reese.
cat going across in the background every single time.
That's unironically some good Patreon content. Yeah.
All right, y'all ready to get into that story?
Yes.
Ah.
Let's do this.
Dad, just try not to make an even bigger mess of things.
Yippee-ki-yay.
Да. Что после всего этого?
First time in Moscow?
Yeah. First time.
You American?
Yeah. New York.
Are you cop?
Yeah.
Welcome to Moscow.
Dad?
Nobody's gonna die today.
hugging family.
Damn straight.
In Moscow, Viktor Shagarin, a high-ranking but corrupt Russian official, plans to incriminate former billionaire and government whistleblower Yuri Komarov in an imminent rigged trial unless Komarov hands over a secret file believed to contain evidence incriminating Shagarin. Separately, Jack McClane, who has been arrested after an assassination attempt, negotiates for a shorter sentence by offering to testify against Komarov. Meanwhile, Jack's father, NYPD detective John McClane, who has not been in touch with his son for several years, has learned his son is in trouble and is taken to the airport by his daughter, Lucy McClane, and flies to Russia to help. As John arrives and approaches the courthouse where Komarov is on trial, a bomb explosion, orchestrated by Shagarin's henchman, Alec, occurs in the courthouse, and Jack breaks free with Komarov. Seeing his son, John confronts him, but their dispute is cut short as Alec and his men chase them in an MRAP through the streets of Moscow. John, Jack, and Komarov manage to escape. This movie is it's the quickest I have not cared about a plot to a Die Hard movie.
Right.
Like, right from the get-go, I do not know exactly what is happening, nor does the movie try to make me care.
Somehow they made this more complicated than Live Free or Die Hard, and I didn't know if that was possible.
So they made it complicated, but I didn't even know it was complicated. Like you reading that, I didn't glean any of that watching this movie. It just felt, oh, there's some kind of thing happening, a coup, I don't know.
Yeah, there's two Russian guys. One guy looks like he's incarcerated. He turns his chessboard around. And then
Anyway, also classic chessboard scene. Like he's not
there
even
you go.
playing with
Dude.
anyone. He's just sitting by one.
That annoys me so much. I know.
apparently
you know,
that turning of
broken
the
record,
chessboard
but-
was supposed to be a sign of his like duality
It's
or
foreshadowing.
something.
He was using a
yeah.
gambit.
Wait, that's actually not a bad idea. Like, that's actually not a
Yeah.
bad idea. But stop freaking using chess. Like,
So the-
go to shogi or something.
But that's the thing. I think this is trying to be something that it's not actually showing you. You know, I'm not getting the subtlety, and the subtlety is kind of just thrown under the rug, and you're distracted by very wooden performances. And I feel like I was left out of a lot of what's happening in this. I don't feel grounded in what the story or the plot or the purpose is.
And also this kind of, whereas I could go with the over-the-topness of Live Free or Die Hard, this one like kind of, it's over the top in the same way that Live Free or Die Hard was, but the story doesn't feel like inherently Die Hard in any way. It's like, oh, now it's like a spy thriller.
Yeah.
And I don't know. We're introduced to Jack, which is John McClane's son, who's
Yeah.
actually also
Dude.
named John McClane, but Jr.
He's junior.
Dude.
Junior.
And it's our boy Jai Courtney, a.k.a. franchise Poison.
Poor guy.
Does he poison every movie he's in?
A lot of them. Like, he was in Terminator Genesis, the worst of the Terminator franchise. He was in Divergent. He was in this.
Divergent. Say no more.
Suicide Squad, although I don't think he was bad in Suicide Squad.
I agree. I actually like Suicide Squad. That's a take, but
It has an editing problem.
yeah,
Yeah.
it has an editing problem. They
Yeah.
they did not do that right.
That being said, I think this also has an editing
Yes.
problem.
Oh my gosh.
It's really, really difficult to follow. Not just plot, but visually.
you know-
It's very choppy.
And I don't know what this camera technique is called.
Yeah.
It's called handing a camera onto a gorilla and having him run around and like make sure he's focused.
Not
it's
quite
that
like-
Hey,
aspect.
man, that's an insult to gorillas.
It's that aspect, but there's also this thing, like, anytime there's dialogue, the camera is constantly zooming in and out and zooming in and
such
out.
a weird
and I'm like,
technique.
why are you doing that? It's like it's afraid we're going to get bored, so it's like, if there's just at least some sort of kinetic movement.
Yeah.
Like,
All right, so
right.
well, we had the same idea, but when we were watching this with one of my roommates, and when they were doing these shots, he's like, "What are they trying to show here?" Because in the scenes where they're choppy, there's action, but then they'll be in a room where they're like doing surveillance, and they're like moving the camera around. Like, what do you? They're in a freaking like surveillance room.
Yeah.
Why are you moving the camera?
Did you notice the overabundance of slow-mo? Like,
yep,
Oh,
especially
yeah.
towards the end.
They're
Oh
trying to
my
bring that back.
gosh.
Yeah, it's like,
That was like, okay, I'll say real quick, I thought this movie was gonna be worse than it was, and it's still not good, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. But
you were hyped to believe that it was like
really terrible.
Totally garbage.
Like really,
Yeah.
really garbage. But like that, like why? What is up with the camera work? This one, like
I described it as a Jason Bourne movie that's not supposed to be a Jason Bourne
Yeah,
movie.
Jason Bourne. That is the aesthetic of Jason Bourne,
is.
and it works for
The
that.
handheld.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yes.
he deliberately used handheld even in the car chase scene, which I want to talk about in a minute. But
Right.
Yeah.
I think his intent was to like artificially force you to be immersed in the action, and it was just too much.
I got
Yeah.
And there are
Yes.
even like times where there's a technique called dolly zoom, where you change the focal length of the lens on a dolly, the camera's on a dolly, and it kind of pulls you in and distorts with, and it's used, it's like a kind of a trippy effect, like Doctor Strange, like when you're going through all that trippy stuff.
Right.
But they like start a dolly zoom and like maybe change the focal length once, and it like lasts half a second and just very
Yeah.
disorienting.
That's exactly it.
And they
I
don't
feel
follow
like,
through with it. And it's
Yeah.
just like artistic style for the sake of trying to do something fancy for, no end purpose
Yeah.
in
Yeah, it's
mind.
all flash and no substance.
Unfortunately, that kind of thing could work if you had something visually to lock on to. And what I mean by that is something, for instance, like Mad Max Fury Road, where they intentionally made the bad guys covered in white pigment so that you can see or delineate between villain and your protagonist. So if you're doing some kind of choppy camera work for a certain effect, you have to be able to visually identify what you're looking at in some other way. But here I can't. I just don't know what's happening.
yeah.
It's
And
John.
you can
McClane.
extrapolate to that to the whole movie. Like it's just too cluttered.
Yeah.
Like there's
also,
too much going on where they didn't edit it down when they needed to.
Okay, so again, I want to know kind of what the situation is in Russia at the beginning here. You see a lot of like news footage. There's just, I don't know, it's just like a lot of, triggery buzzwords on the TV
Right.
screen, and then they say a couple things, and then we cut to McClane, and I'm like, okay, what is the conflict in Russia right now?
I feel like in movies like this, where it should be simple to understand. It should not be this hard for your brain to coordinate with.
they don't tell you. They actually don't.
It doesn't
really tell
do
you.
the base amount of like the basics of setting up anything.
Yeah, all you know is that problem in Russia. Politics are weird. This guy's got a code.
Yeah,
all
and this
right. I
guy's
don't know what the
gonna-
code's for, but it's
Yeah.
important.
This random Russia guy shoots some guy.
I think the only thing I did understand was, there's dirt on something.
Yeah, and they're gonna
they don't
bamboozle
like
this one
that.
guy.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say, AJ?
Yeah, so basically you've got two big players here. One is being kind of he's a whistleblower on another guy who's got designs to be the next PM or something like that. So they're trying to get whatever blackmail they have and extradite him or get him to sanctuary to the States so they can prevent this guy from being the next big bad.
Right.
Okay, what you
charge of
just
the superpower.
what you just said there was a lot more clearer than what we got in the movie.
Yeah.
And I do think that's partially because of this quick cutting and this like it just can't rest in any
Yeah.
scene for one moment to just tell you something.
They want
So,
action.
how far are we right now? Like,
I just wanted to recap the very
very
earliest
intro.
part of the movie
Okay.
just to kind of
Yeah.
make sure
Yeah.
I wasn't just the only one confused
yeah.
about that.
I
But
think
what is
everyone
very
is
clear
confused.
is his name is John because
Yes.
Jack says his name John like 20 million times.
Oh
Damn
yeah.
you, John.
Oh, I do want to
not
talk
my
about.
dad.
I do want to talk about John McClane real quick in this. This is the first movie where they basically do nothing to try to reestablish John McClane in the beginning. You get like a couple of scenes. He's like at the shooting range, and then he's off to Russia. Like that. It's
Why did he go?
Well, it's because of his son. His son was in trouble.
Yeah,
he's
but
he's about to be put on trial or
Yeah,
something.
I needed more establishing of his where he's at now in his life. Like, give me his day to
Yeah.
day. What
He's just
what
an
he's
old
thinking.
cop.
Show him in this like general malaise about life.
Yeah.
But you know what we get? We get an interaction with him and his daughter.
Yeah.
Which I didn't
Without
get.
that, there is nothing.
Yeah.
Guess what? I did not get that. I watched the extended cut thinking that they weren't going to take out scenes, they were going to add them. Apparently, though, upon
so-
research, they cut out all of the daughter stuff, which apparently is not a lot, but it's not in that version of the movie.
Why?
I don't know.
I'll never tell.
Apart from I actually didn't mind like the whole father-son dynamic of this movie, but what I do have a problem with is that it's beating a dead horse, which
Oh,
was
yeah.
the last movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is the exact same plot point with his daughter. And then they made no mention of him having also a son.
Yeah.
Which would have come
Which
up.
is
I think it is
apparent from the
mentioned-
first
It's
one.
mentioned in the first one.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, that he has a son.
But they
and a
never
daughter
bring
or
it
something
up.
like that.
It would have been better if in this movie somewhere he goes by Jack Gennaro or something like that, and at the very end he goes, "Actually, it's Jack McClane."
There is one carryover that they do in Live Free and this one where both the daughter and the son start off calling him John,
John.
and then they
Yeah.
change to Dad.
Yeah.
This one was heavy-handed.
That part came up, and I was like, he's gonna say Dad.
Yeah.
He's
He's
gonna
gonna
say
do it.
Dad.
So before we get to how the chemistry between Jack and John works, let's talk about this big car chase where John McClane finally finds his son, and he's in the middle of an operation. AJ, you wanted to speak on this one. Why don't you break it down? What your thoughts are on this?
So there's definitely potential for good in this because it's very evident that Moore and the whole production put so much effort into this scene. This car chase, was kind of set up to be a huge, like grandiose car chase that's supposed to be ranked up there with the greatest car chases in movies ever. And there's so much technical in here from, special effects and everything and setup and everything that has the potential for a great car chase scene, but they didn't edit any of the garbage out of it. There's too much.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you have an MRAP and a Unimog and a G-Wagon and all this stuff and like these big, like it could be exciting, but
Yeah.
there's too
The
much
thing-
of it. You're overloaded with it.
It thinks we'll be happy if it just does the same trick 50 times. Like, it's
Right.
like, yes, I saw that car flip. It looked the same the next 49 times. It just, like...
All my roommates are car people. I'm just gonna say, like, they're huge into cars. They would all be on top of this. But the one I was watching with, there's a point where they got that G-Wagon out, and I was like, oh yeah, like a G-Wagon could do that. He goes, oh well, wait a second, it could actually do that. And then a few seconds later, it drives off and like starts going over cars. He goes,
Never mind.
maybe not that.
Yeah.
I love that scene where he goes down off the bridge onto the car carrier and then onto all these other cars, like just driving over their windshields. I'm like, really? You were literally endangering all these civilians
Yeah.
to...
Moore literally said that was the focal point of the car chase scene, which is terrible.
Yeah.
You mean product placement?
There's product
Well,
placement
Oh my
too.
gosh, look at
It,
this!
No.
it actually feels like a
G-Wagon go.
demonstration. If you go to a car show and see all the off-road, the Wranglers and all that stuff, like you go
Yeah.
right in this thing, go up a hill and all this stuff, like that's what it felt like.
Oh, yeah.
Also, I count them. There are 2 times in this where John McClane like flips a car and just walks out of it without any
Yeah.
scratches. That to me is infuriating and against everything that John
Yeah.
McClane is supposed to represent. He's
Well-
again, I'm going to keep hammering this home. He's the everyman. He
Yeah.
is supposed to be beaten and bloody. Yeah,
He barely makes it through.
They put some makeup on his bald head, and he's like got some blood streaming down there. But you never get the sense that he's actually, in
danger.
any pain or struggling through.
Like
any
this
of
whole thing
Exactly.
did nothing to him.
That is something that I noticed as well, and it says something that more than one person noticed. That wow, he's not really that bloodied.
Yeah.
He's not injured in any way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, you have the from the previous movies, like we had, hard to believe flips and shooting cars at helicopters and all that stuff. Like you suspend your disbelief and go with it because it's dumb action, but it's layered because you have John McClane driving that vehicle, doing these actions to take down and barely scraping by. Here, all of his lines and delivery is just so, like, I didn't laugh at a single thing he said. That was
Yeah, 'cause
clearly
half-
supposed to be
Yeah.
some kind of witty remark, typical McClaneism or whatever. Like, it was
Right.
not, his character was so different that it did not pair with the action I was seeing on screen, and that's
No.
why I could not, click with
Do you know
it
why you
at
didn't
all.
like? Do you know why you didn't like his lines, AJ? Because half of them were "I'm on vacation."
I'm on vacation.
Literally, when he
Sorry,
first gets the G-Wagon, he literally stops the guy gets out. He's like, you think I
man.
speak Russian? And he just slams him in the face. Like,
Yeah, that's exactly
a total dick move. That is
That's
not John
exactly
McClane.
the part I was thinking about, because I was going to mention there's just a complete sense of disregard for Russia and its people, not just by McClane, but by whoever wrote this plot. There's just, oh, a cool place to, you know, basically tear things up is Russia. We don't really need to know much about them or the people. We just need to, you know, have another playground.
Yeah.
And everything showcases that. There's so much carnage where there's no concern for civilians.
Yeah.
And it was just so frustrating to see John McClane's character turn into a complete ass. You know?
Pretty much a terrorist in his own right.
He's kind of a douche. Like,
But
Garden
This is-
Square, literally the most congested traffic area in
Yeah.
the world, and you have this giant car chase through it. Like, okay,
Yeah.
Like the whole time I'm thinking of that Team America song. Where it's like, America!
yeah.
It's totally that.
someone say jingoism. Like,
Okay, but this whole car chase is something I repeatedly have a problem with movies. It is the car chase. I am so tired of seeing the same car chase scene for like 10 minutes every single movie.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I'll say there's a couple of cool little stunts here within the car
Yeah.
chase, but I'd say 75% of it is just the same redundant
Yeah.
crashes.
That's what
over and
AJ
over.
was saying. There's
They do
a
the same
good thing
thing.
in there, but they have so
they
much
need to
bad.
edit it down, pare
Yeah.
it down.
but
Yeah.
here,
and this is
here's
coming
the-
from the original Gone in 60 Seconds. You literally have like a 45-minute car chase, like half the movie.
Yeah.
But that's fine because that's what the movie is.
Right.
This one, like, it just, you can tell that they sunk their entire emotional and financial energies into this scene, and
Right.
for what?
Yeah.
This is-
it completely flopped.
Yeah.
This is actually the sequence that they like puffed their chests up about and were like, yeah, this took weeks and weeks and weeks or months, however long, to like get right. And then you see it and it's like, oh no.
Dude,
Yeah.
Oh, buddy.
no one
It's,
no one cares about car chases anymore.
Yeah.
I
There
do.
are only
I
a few
do.
I don't have a
There are
problem with
only
car
a few
chases.
franchises that
Fast
can
and
do
Furious?
it any justice. Yes, Fast and Furious can do it, and a couple others, and like you really
Yeah.
enjoyed in those. But everything
Drive.
else,
Drive is good.
Drive is
Drive
so
is
good.
really
The
good.
Driver,
John Wick has a
Yeah.
couple of really good ones.
the
Oh, yeah.
last
but-
Supremacy and Identity, Bourne movies.
Yep.
But I
No,
I
but
mean, there's
I'm
good car
talking-
chases.
yeah.
Car chases in and of themselves are not bad in my
no,
opinion.
they're not.
no,
But they're-
well,
this is not done well.
I'm talking about specifically the car chase where there's nothing going on except they're bashing some cars around.
Yeah.
This car hits this car. Oh no, that one flipped over.
Yeah. So
I will always
I-
defend the car chase if it's done really well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
yeah, yeah, no.
obviously, if it's done well.
I agree with you, Noah, though, because there are so many movies, and this isn't just for car chases. It's just anything they think is going to be liked by the general audience. You know, is they'll oversaturate, they'll overdo it, and they completely miss the point. Like,
Yeah.
and that's what's happening here. But I think honestly, my take on this is that I don't like this car chase, and it's because of the redundancies. Except for, I think my favorite part was the final part where the car goes off the bridge and into that cement.
Roller thing.
Yeah.
That
I was
wasn't
like,
bad.
oh, that was actually a cool shot.
Yeah.
And it's because they framed it well. I got to
Yep.
see it. And everything else is just jumping back and forth between cars. There's an impact with one car into another, and then they jump to another car's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So it confuses the viewer as to what's happening to who.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
the cinematography
yeah.
does not help here either, framing
Right.
the story, because you already
Right.
have bad writing, and then the actual filming of it is not.
exactly.
But luckily, we
done
do
well.
get that one slow mo scene whenever John is there to help Jack, and then they do that slow mo where he's spinning, and Jack looks at him like, John.
I was gonna say, there's only one slow mo in this movie.
Yeah, the one where he's like spinning and they lock
But-
eye contact somehow when they both are spinning. I don't know.
Right.
It's,
About
There are some
1,000
scenes where
slow-mo scenes.
Jai Courtney, I don't think he's abysmal in this,
Right.
but when he's trying to come off as like really angry at his dad,
gosh,
it just
yeah.
falls completely flat.
exactly how
like when
I
he's,
felt.
When he's like banging on the steering wheel, going like, "Damn you, McLean!"
Well, also he's like he's supposed to be a spy, isn't he? Supposed to be a little more
Like calm and
educated
collected,
and
or-
collected about these kind of
He did
things.
not
Like
feel
you're
like a
supposed to
spy.
adapt to the situation,
Yeah.
but he's acting like a little brat the whole time. It really bothers me.
so-
Also, UAV over Moscow, probably not going to happen.
Yeah, that would get shot right down. wouldn't it?
All right, I have a question though for you guys. When when John is trying to find Jack for the first time, do you guys think this kind of like is all of John's fault? Like just me like watching the first time, Jack would have gotten in that car, that Sprinter, and driven off with Yuri, and then would have succeeded his mission. But then John was like, "Stop, son! You got to talk to me. What's going on?" And then it keeps him from being able to complete his mission, therefore causing the whole movie.
I do believe
explosions
there's a
going
scene-
around, getting shot at. Hug, come give me a hug, son.
Really? Correct me if I'm wrong. I do believe there's a scene where McClane talks to him and says apologizes for meddling with his business.
Yeah, but the whole movie is because of that.
Yeah, so I agree, but that is something that they address later.
So,
and a lot of movies are based off of someone making a mistake.
But
and that's the reason things spin
I
out of
think
control.
what you're touching on, though, is because we've seen all the rest of these movies, what thing has he always had? Intuition. In this one, he has absolutely none.
Yeah.
Like
he has one scene.
Yeah, one scene,
he
but
gets
that's
it later, but just not any of it with his son.
Another thing that they get wrong about McClane is he has no resourcefulness in this.
Yeah.
They cut past all of that and now he's holding like a massive machine gun, or now he's in this big vehicle just ramming cars. Like, it's just like, let's cut past the part where he like wraps his wound in his shirt or something, or just gets by the skin of his teeth.
Right.
No
Irina's
radio.
spot on. It's the situational awareness, like making something from nothing
Right.
and still hanging on.
That's totally gone from here, which is just really unfortunate.
Said he just
'cause
walks around aloof while everything's falling down behind him. And
Right.
I'm on vacation.
Yeah. Anyway, let's move on with the story, and in the next portion we can get into how Jack and John get along in this movie and whether they have chemistry or not and all that.
I keep wanting to say Jack and Jill.
All right, let's
Every time
as well.
Yeah, let's continue. Hiding in a safe house, John finds out that his son is a CIA agent and has been on an undercover operation for the past 3 years. Jack's partner, Collins, demands the file's location from Kamarov so that the CIA can bring Shagarin down. Kamarov eventually agrees on condition that he and his daughter are given safe passage out of Russia. Collins is eventually shot and killed, while the McClanes and Kamarov come under heavy gunfire from Shagarin's men, but they escape. They make their way to a hotel in the city to fetch the key to the safe deposit box containing the file. There they meet up with Kamarov's daughter, Irina, as earlier planned. John grows suspicious of her shifty behavior and is proven correct when Alec and his men burst in and tie John and Jack up, while Kamarov is taken as a hostage, and Irina confesses to informing on them for the millions of dollars to be gained. Jack breaks free of his ties and kills the nearest guards using a Russian gun knife, allowing the two to kill most of the men. Alec and Irina, with Kamarov still their hostage, return in a helicopter and try to kill them, but the two escape a second time.
All right, so we're in the safe house now.
We're in the safe
I
house.
thought
That
this
was
is where things
long.
would slow down, and we were going to
Supposed
sort
safe
of
house.
get a breakdown of what is happening, so we can sort of get it under us, and then we can move on.
Nope,
Right.
Collins is shot in the head.
Nope, it's done. We're going. Come on, keep that camera rolling. Get that gorilla, the camera.
And Colin, he's played by one of those, like, hey, it's that guy in this, and then he's pretty much out.
He's gone.
Oh, there's
Really
that guy
quickly.
go.
But let's get into Jai Courtney and Bruce Willis's on-screen presences together, how they interact.
Oh, easy. Hey, Reese, you play John McClane, and I'll play his son. Dad, I'm doing something. You shouldn't be
not
here.
Dad, John.
Sorry,
Yeah, David.
John, you shouldn't be here.
Well, I'm here, so deal with it.
I don't care. I'm a CIA operative. I hate you.
Well, you shouldn't be doing this.
You're not my dad. Get out of my life. I'm living my own life.
Here's a gun.
I love you, Dad. Is that what it was like?
Individually, I don't think they're bad actors. It's just they're not playing who they would represent authentically.
Yeah.
And they don't, because of the script, it's not allowing them to have actual chemistry.
Yeah.
Like I feel like they're being forced to go through these lines and don't really mean it.
Yeah, this might be crazy, but I actually think Justin Long makes for a better son figure
Yeah.
to John McClane than Jai Courtney
That
does.
is so messed up.
That's who I thought it was at the beginning for a moment. I was
Yeah.
thinking, oh, is he the one that's in Russia?
Oh,
And
yeah.
then, nope.
Well,
it's
if I'm
his
not mistaken,
son.
originally they were supposed to make Long's character for the fourth movie be his son.
Yeah,
but
but
then they
their
changed
father-son banter in that is
son-in-law.
good. Like it's very generational. Justin Long's always making fun of McClane for his tastes and what he's into and how he feels about the news and all that. And that's a very like father-son dynamic where it's back and forth.
Yeah.
In this one, you just get like, oh, the son, he's, not very social.
Yeah.
He's a CIA operative, super cardboard. You get none of that
Right.
McClane flair in his
Yeah.
personality. It's just,
It's also this is not the time and place to deal with this.
Yeah.
If we were dealing with men like John McClane and Junior, basically, they would not be having these kind of back and forths in this moment. It would just be like, get this done. Okay. It's very just, okay, we have to deal with our priorities right now. Then maybe the father-son issues.
Yeah.
But they're not emotional people. They're not going to, well, obviously they're super emotional, but it's just, in this situation, it just does not feel right,
yeah.
I do want to say real quick, I really didn't mind the father-son thing. I do think it would have been better with Justin Long, but
It wasn't bad. I agree.
I didn't think it was
Here,
bad.
here, I'll level with you. I think it starts off horribly, but I
Yes,
do think
I
it
agree with
gets
that.
better as it goes along.
Yeah.
Yeah, it started off bad, but it gets better.
Yeah, like there
Once-
is an honest heart-to-heart, like before they go on the final mission.
Mm-hmm.
where
Yeah,
like,
when he pulls the shrapnel out of his gut wound that will make him bleed out instantly.
Steve Irwin style, yeah.
yeah. No, but the
I think
words
Courtney
exchanged
actually
there
pulled
is
his
fine.
weight more in the relationship in this
Yeah.
portrayal than
Yeah, I agree.
Willis did.
Yeah, he did.
But
And
the
the thing
problem
is-
is they're playing in two different movies.
Right.
Yeah, they are, and I think it's sad because I actually kind of like Jai Courtney. Jay or Jai?
Jai.
Jai. Yeah, I like Jai Courtney. I think he does a good job in this, and I think he does a good job in some of the other movies he does. But you're kind of right. No matter what he's in, it doesn't do great, and it's kind of sad. I want to see him in a good movie. He kind of reminds me of Sabretooth from X-Men a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think he could do a better job. He just hasn't found that one movie yet.
Yeah.
I feel bad because people really like to dunk on Jai Courtney, but I don't actually.
They just
think,
want a scapegoat.
I don't. It's like a Hayden Christensen thing in Star Wars,
Right.
Oh, yeah, it
yeah,
is.
the performance isn't good, but is it really his fault? I don't
No.
know. Like I really don't know.
Here's I think Hayden Christensen's a perfectly decent actor, but that movie just sucks.
Yeah, the
Like
direction
also
was
people
poor.
forget to focus on the script. The script
Yeah.
can be really bad and no actor can pull that off. Like
there
it's
are
just
some like anomaly type actors that can just make bad lines work.
Yeah.
But
Morgan Freeman?
But
yeah,
if you were to
probably.
look at that script, cut and dry,
Yeah, it's
that's
like, what do I
not
do
good.
with this, guys?
Yeah.
the line is "Damn you, McClane." I guess I'll try that.
Damn you,
I hate
McClane!
saying
Can you try that again? Damn you, McClane! Third
I
time,
need-
maybe?
More
hitting-
emotion.
Hit the steering wheel.
Damn you, McClane! Maybe
What
a little
accent
less,
was that?
Maybe a little less British. I don't know.
Could you add a little Schwarzenegger in there a little bit?
Damn you, McClane! Damn you! Where are we in the plot? Like, I don't even know.
I know.
Okay, so
Okay,
the
so
safe
let's
house.
the betrayal of the daughter.
Yeah.
No, let's talk safe house that's not safe.
Yeah.
the worst safe house.
So
in
we're
existence.
at the unsafe safe house. How do y'all feel about all
So
of this?
this is when you're supposed to be given that whole his son's a spy kind of a thing, and everything is happening so fast that I don't actually get to feel that moment or even care that he is. I don't know anything about this guy. I wish I had seen, instead of maybe having McClane show up and not seeing his travel there and at least getting to know his son a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because it always turns me off when I'm watching a movie and you have a child figure where the first thing you see of them is just them being a butt. And you're
Yep.
like, wow, I hate this guy. So
Which movie did that recently?
But it's not a good look. I want to like this character so I can feel something when there's more of a connection later down the road.
The movie needed to be longer and just be confident in its more silent moments.
Yeah.
Like the moments of where they like get to finally, wow, that was crazy, wasn't it, Dad? Or John. What did you think of
Wow,
that?
that was
Like,
crazy, wasn't it,
I
Dad?
know. Wow, Dad.
Yeah,
that
have
was
some
crazy.
subtlety.
Right. Exactly.
And it just totally skips past those moments until the end where it finally does kind of sort of take a breath for
Right.
2 seconds.
Dude,
and
when is someone going to acknowledge how badass John McClane is? Like,
Not
what?
this movie.
Yeah, no, he's always referred to as like, wow, Dad, you suck.
Yeah.
I've saved the world 4
every
times.
I will say, they finally do start working with him and acknowledging
Right. Yeah.
he's great in Live Free or Die Hard. Like that's the one where
Yeah.
everyone's like, okay, what
Well,
what do you need from us, John
Even
McClane?
the third movie a little bit. Like,
Well, no, his
were-
daughter was like,
His daughter. No, I'm just talking about like people of authority.
yeah.
They recognize
well, they do.
his
Well,
abilities.
of course, but
Another thing I noticed about this movie is it is the first one where the villain is upstaged by a helicopter.
Helicopters are a common.
yeah.
Yes, they are.
Well,
I think what we should have gotten here was a more grizzled McClane kind of
Right.
forced into this, and instead of the line "I'm on vacation," should be like "I'm retired." Like,
Yeah.
Easily transition that a little bit. You have more character development
Yeah.
and depth there.
I think
And
that was already
then-
taken by Indiana Jones, though. It's like,
Well-
I'm retired.
But the whole "I'm on vacation" is just kind of thrown in there as a punchline that you didn't get a build up for. You know, like if there were
Like
a
every
scene,
line.
yeah, if there were a scene before where he's traveling and someone said, "So what brings you to Russia?" and he's like, "Oh, vacation." You know, then those lines would have made more sense to me. But it just felt kind of shoehorned in as, "Oh, we need something quippy for him to say."
Yeah.
Okay, guys, I'm calling it here. They're going to make a movie, and they're gonna call it like John McClane or something, and it's gonna be like
Back in action.
Logan,
Oh,
and it's gonna be the last one.
That's not a bad idea, though. Honestly, if
I know.
if no director out there has heard of that yet,
Wait,
Wasn't
to
the screenwriter the same
franchise
one that did
portion of
X-Men
this.
Origins?
Great.
Is it?
I think so.
Oh,
well, not the director though. That's for sure.
no.
So are we to the
I wanna
daughter's
talk about-
betrayal? Or
Yeah, Komarov and all that stuff.
right.
Well, I want to transition into this by asking the question: who is our antagonist? All right, in door number 1, we have Tap Dancer McGee, who used to be or wants to be a dancer.
Tap Dancer McGee.
Yeah, we also
And yet
have
tap dancers
We
in-
also
You mean-
have Irina, who is the daughter / evil
Oh, I thought you
villain.
were talking to me.
Yeah, exactly. You thought. And then in door number 3, we have guy we think is good guy turns bad guy.
And door number 4, helicopter.
Yeah, helicopter.
I vote
Helicopters on
You
both
sound
sides.
like you sound like Badman from.
He's a helicopter.
Is that boy Sunday trousers? So
The answer is all of them because it's all a twist.
But
Yeah.
who's
For the
the,
sake
who's
of
the
having a
one?
twist.
Who's the one you want to hate? I think the tap dancer guy is the one I actually like as the villain.
Yeah.
Really? No.
I don't like him.
No, I don't like
He
any of
walks
them.
in with a freaking carrot and he's chewing the whole
Look,
time.
he has
Oh,
the
yeah,
most
I'm
energy
intimidating.
out of all of these guys. The
He
main
has
guy
no
you don't
energy.
know. The daughter
he just
does
has
nothing.
like he has all. It's like he's trying to be quirky. Like he's trying to be Christoph Waltz and
Yes, he is.
something.
Look,
and
I'm
like
not saying he's succeeding.
Yeah.
I'm just saying he had the most charismatic energy out of all of them.
He's the one that you point to be the antagonist originally.
Even though
This-
he's
the-
not.
And then
No,
you have the betrayal of the daughter, and then, the whole twist, which, whatever. But I wanted to say, Komarov, for a positive note for this movie, draws you in to really kind of follow on with his character initially.
right.
He's
Like, he
alright.
seems like the victim.
Yeah,
I just think
I'm sure-
I just think all these villains pale in comparison to all the past 4.
Oh,
Like,
they
you
do.
had Hans and Simon Gruber for 1 and 3. You had William Sadler, whoever that guy was, in 2, Naked Guy, who
he
was,
wasn't great either.
But
I
he did
remember
better than this.
yeah, he did.
Yeah.
He did.
and then you had Timothy Olyphant, tech terrorist, in
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
4th
he's
one.
pretty good.
And this one's just like, I'm gonna forget this guy tomorrow. Or
Yeah.
all of them.
Are you
Well,
saying?
it's just-
Yeah. Who is it though?
Well,
Is
the
it
thing
Yuri?
is, like, you get the impression that, oh, Russia is a villain. Like, I don't really have all of the Russians I encounter were all villainous. There's
Apparently,
not.
Russia was not happy about this movie.
I
Oh, I-
bet they
like, 'cause
weren't.
I was
I
thinking
wouldn't
that the
be
whole
happy.
movie.
Yeah, they were not.
Yeah.
They were not portrayed well.
Every single Russian was not great. Like, I don't.
It's actually kind of sad. I was wondering when watching this how America would react if they made a movie that was this big and made us look like an asshat.
I mean, I think they exist, but
Yeah, but they're not. No, blockbusters. I'm not talking
Right.
about like movies that people don't see.
yeah.
Either way.
So should we talk about the inane gunfight and helicopter battle, the one in the middle of the movie that
Yes.
ends with John and Jack just blindly jumping out of a window, like not
Bruce
even
Willis
knowing.
literally shooting at the ground instead of the enemies, the combatants.
Yeah. This was, out of all 3 action sequences, this is the most forgettable, the most stupid, and just the most ill-conceived. I think at least with the car chase, it's giving me a couple of memorable gems. This second one, though, the intro to the helicopter and just everything that happens, how John McClane just randomly picks up this big gun and starts firing at people, like, it just felt off.
Yeah.
Like, I thought it was
Especially
bad.
since this scene aesthetically is set up for like a great scene. The
Right.
the actual environment they're in, that ballroom looking thing.
Yeah.
Like that's set up perfectly for a memorable scene.
He was literally RoboCopping, but it wasn't as cool because
Yeah.
he was just firing at the same spot, and these guys would just single file, by the way, in there as they just all just died in this same spot, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh. If you're talking about someone who's pretty much on SWAT level, they're not going to be doing that.
Yeah, and this also highlights a big difference between the over-the-top action from Live Free or Die Hard and the over-the-top action from this film. In Live Free or Die Hard, it was always McClane getting rid of baddies in some sort of creative way, whether by fire extinguisher, whether by driving into a grate and the guy flying into the garbage disposal.
That was great.
It was, or launching a car into a helicopter in a fun way. It was ridiculous, but it was like, oh, that's creative, and
Yeah.
this one is just fire at bad guy fall,
Yeah.
jump out window.
Well, there's also that attitude from the others where he's kind of doing this begrudgingly. Like, I don't actually want to be here, but I gotta.
Yeah,
You know?
and this is just like a shooting gallery. Like
Yeah.
it just seems so manufactured and like
It does.
just
How many
generic.
points can you score on this round?
Yeah.
It's a shame too because there's some really good camera work on some
Yeah.
shots, and then it immediately is followed by handy cam pointing the
Yeah.
complete wrong direction.
Yeah.
That is just so like we've said before countless times, needed to be edited out. It's like an amateur photographer who takes a million pictures because one of them is bound to be good, but you never take the time to sort through them and
Right.
figure out which one is good.
Yeah. And I'll give the movie some credit here. After this action sequence, I think we get our first kind of like heart-to-heart between Jack and John. It's starting to set up the fact that they're going to mend this busted relationship. It's not, it kind of half-asses it, but at least it's giving some lip service to
Right.
building this relationship in a positive way.
I thought they were relatively successful with that. I mean, sure, other movies might have done it better, but rather than the son being just this annoying prick the whole time, they're
Yeah.
starting to like each other again and,
Yeah.
get along and work together. I kind of liked that.
It's literally the first meaningful bit of dialogue in the movie this far. And
Exactly.
How many minutes are we into it?
I know,
Probably
right?
like 45, 50.
55 minutes.
Yeah. There you go.
Wow.
I imagine this is what they really wanted to do with the movie, but they just got sidetracked by a lot of bells and whistles.
No, they just needed. We're harping on this a lot, but it just needed those downtime moments.
Yeah, I
and
agree.
it just completely cuts out. And this movie is the shortest Die Hard movie. It's an hour and a half.
You know where they put that downtime? In the stupid scene where they're in Chernobyl, just walking around killing people, but
Yeah.
it's the most
slower
boring
pace,
part
yeah.
of the
Yeah.
entire movie.
Yeah.
I've noticed that for action movies, what makes them really stand out for me, and I'm usually pretty picky about action because I don't typically
Yeah.
go for it, but for me, it's those moments to make you realize just how dramatic the action is. So if you have way too much action, the viewer gets too accustomed to it to the point that none of it is actually unique.
Yeah. It just comes
So-
off as
Dynamics.
noise.
Yeah, and so
If you're playing at 11 the whole time, then it's all
Right.
meaningless.
And so for me, I think there are two kinds that are really effective, and one is a film that draws upon the tension of a scene, and you're just waiting for that bang, like for everything to just unleash.
Yeah.
Or the other where you have action, but then you have those moments of calm and kind of like Eye of the Storm moments where
Yeah.
you get to come back to reality for a second.
Yeah.
But one
But you
that
know
yeah.
there's chaos yet to come.
So it's like you need that dynamic quality in order to really appreciate what you're watching.
Yeah.
Were you surprised by the twist of the daughter at this point?
Not
at all.
really. I didn't even really care.
I was meaning to mention it earlier. I'm I'm getting really tired of movies doing twists just to do a twist like, oh, I'm really the bad guy.
Yeah, it seems so pointless.
But,
They did it
but
twice in
not
this movie.
even, like, it's okay to do a twist like that because it can be really juicy sometimes.
Right.
But when you do it in such a way that it's just, like, they don't
Twist for the
set
sake
it up.
of having a twist.
Right.
Yeah, they don't set it up in such a way that it really makes sense that they would.
Yeah,
It's-
they're barely interacting with one another before
Yeah.
she like turns coat.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, that happened. Like,
yeah.
And
Yeah.
it
But I'm more talking about the guy, like the whatever he is.
he's not a
Komarov.
scientist.
Like, not
Yeah.
to mention that he could have just fled when the safe house went bust, and
Yeah,
Right.
the
exactly.
whole end result would have been the same.
Like the whole time they're like so trying to convince you that he's the good guy.
Yeah.
And then when they change it, you're still not surprised because it's like, well, that's par for course for this movie.
Well, also, can anyone explain to me the weird sexual tension between the daughter and the
Why
father?
did they do that?
Why
That
is
is-
that
Why?
happening?
that is, I don't know. I thought I might be able to explain. I'm actually thinking about it now.
They never really explain why. It was just some kind of choice, I
guess.
Yeah, they're like looking into each other's eyes and like, oh.
She gets really close to his head and she's like, "Daddy" and stuff. And I'm like, dude, what
there's
the?
a point
what?
where
Daddy,
gets
let's
really-
nuke US.
They really
Daddy,
get
let's make
close,
money.
and you're like, are they gonna kiss?
Yeah, I know.
And,
That's what I was
they
thinking,
don't.
too.
They hug, and I'm like, that was weird. Why did they do that?
I mean, I
You're
guess
a
just chalk it
genius.
up to a traumatic childhood. I don't know, but
Nah, it did seem a little weird. I thought, well, maybe there's some other, maybe their relationships
yeah.
are just different.
I guess my
but-
point is that you can explain it, but there's really no purpose.
Oh, yeah,
Just make it a father and daughter. Why do you have to act it out this way?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
All right, let's move on with the story. That night, John and Jack McClane steal a car full of firearms and drive to Pripyat, Ukraine, where the safe deposit box with the file is located. However, Komarov, Irina, and Alec have preceded them. In a twist, the file is revealed never to have existed. The safe deposit box with the file supposedly inside is, in fact, a secret passage to a Chernobyl-era vault containing 1 billion rubles, I'm assuming it's rubles, worth of weapons-grade uranium. Once inside the vault, Komarov kills Alec and calls Shagarin to gloat and to listen as Shagarin is killed by a henchman of Komarov's. Okay.
So he wanted to be captured so he could be taken to a place he already knew about where he could get a lot of money.
I guess it made him look less suspicious?
Don't think about it.
confused.
This is where I had to suspend anything that I've learned in this movie and just had to roll with it.
Oh, I had already suspended all of this and was trying to roll with it, but
Also, it takes like 14 hours from Moscow to Pripyat, so
Don't
they
worry
just get
about
there
it.
instantly.
What did I say?
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
they didn't anticipate someone like AJ, someone like putting it on Google Maps and being
So-
like, that's not accurate.
This movie does feel like something that was made by Americans for Americans. No bit of Russia was actually involved
Not
in
at
the
all.
creation.
Also, fun fact, all the Russian henchmen, none of them are Russian.
Greek.
No, they had some Greek. They also had Ukrainian. They also had Bulgarian. They had all these Slavic countries.
Well, they're
Not
ex-Soviet
one-
states, close enough.
Yeah.
Close enough, I guess, but not one Russian, really?
So they
No, it
they
would've made
recruited
it-
them by saying, "Hey, you want to make something that makes Russia look really bad?" And they're like, "Yeah, sure." So I'm seriously trying to grapple with this idea.
Motive.
What? Yeah, the motive. What is exactly this motive?
Uranium.
It's,
They
it's
mention
the
it
typical
once and it's
Die Hard
money.
motif, or at least a shot at it, of
Yeah.
everything's veiled in terrorism and a higher cause, but it's all about money in the end.
So
Exactly.
Let's go over this real quick because I'm trying to organize it. This guy that has this alleged file, he just make up the fact that he had a file so they would capture him so that he could betray them?
Yeah.
The only
talk
need
about
he needed
this
was to be
briefly.
busted out of prison and
Right.
get away from the trial.
Right.
But the whole stringing them along and the double cross of the daughter and all that stuff, still like stringing them along,
Right.
like unnecessary.
I
Like just
Yeah,
go
so-
straight to Chernobyl, get your radiation dose, and get your uranium, and get out of there.
And you know, maybe they had a reason for why all this was happening in a longer cut of this movie.
They don't.
Well,
I don't know. I just feel like there's a lot missing here. It's still okay. I think some of the things you mentioned already, AJ, are kind of unfixable problems with the writing. But who knows? Maybe there's some sort of explanation.
But Komarov
for
already
some
has
of
people
these
on the
actions.
inside to assassinate Gagarin.
Right.
Yeah,
But he couldn't get himself out of prison without a Black Ops CIA agent and his dad.
Yeah, that does
It
not
breaks
hold up.
my brain.
But was he a part of it? Did he know that was going to happen? No. That's why I'm confused.
I think as far as that whole plan goes, it does make sense. But they didn't explain it well enough. Like,
Also, I think like uranium is the thing they put in every action movie just so people think like, oh, this
nukes.
is serious.
Yeah.
It's uranium.
if they decided to actually use it, they would have gone with some really high-grade plutonium.
Plutonium, unobtainium from Avatar.
hey man, plutonium, that puts you in the future.
You're right. The
okay?
other one's plutonium. That was Mission Impossible.
Or the past.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are you going with, Noah?
I'm going with a little movie with Doc Brown.
Oh, Back to the
Back
Future.
to the Future.
There you go.
This movie, like, they probably thought they had, or at least the director thought he had, like, a slam dunk. It's like, we're going to go to Chernobyl. There's all
Right.
these evil Russians. McClane in Russia, like, heck yes. The catch, or the tagline for this movie was, Yippee-ki-yay, Mother Russia. That was,
my gosh.
Oh, that reminds me. He did not say it in this.
Yes, he did.
movie.
Honestly?
Yes, he
Yeah,
did.
he did.
Honestly, though,
When he's in the car getting ready to back out of the helicopter.
this
Really?
this whole movie
That's so lame.
just feels like American propaganda, you know? Like, I could totally imagine, like, just a country making a movie like this just to play up that, oh, Americans are awesome, Russians are terrible, you know?
Well, you know what that would have done well is
What?
in the 80s.
Yeah.
If they made this movie in the 80s,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
movie would have
Yeah.
just skyrocketed.
That's kind of the energy I'm getting from it.
I don't know.
It's not a good look.
Yeah, this movie really painted Russia as a whole as not good.
Yeah.
Which is
Or
not
it's like
smart.
it's like maybe not all of it as negative, but just it's either villains and everyone else is just irrelevant.
Yeah, well, exactly. Like okay, the citizens are expendable, and at
hey, there's
best,
that one nice taxi guy.
Yeah,
okay,
who's like
yeah.
Free of
totally-
charge.
But also, the taxi guy is super in love with America.
Frank
like he just
Sinatra.
loves America,
that's true.
and he's all like,
he's
"Oh,
singing the
you
whole
can
time.
leave for free, no charge.
Propaganda.
Just
Propaganda.
have a
Want sex?
fun day."
yeah, it's just off.
I declare propaganda.
Okay, but that said, I do think that we are being a little harsh with this movie.
I don't think
I don't
so.
think so.
I don't, okay, maybe with that in particular we're not, but overall, I think it's not. It's definitely not a good movie, but it's not the worst movie we've seen.
Is out of all of them?
Oh,
It's-
in the overall scheme of all of our ranked movies, it's not going to be dead last.
Right.
I don't
Well,
think.
yeah.
I don't
But
think so
it's-
either.
It's going to be close though.
Okay, like you can compare this to a lot of movies and say it's like, oh, it's not great, but
all right, Noah.
but you can also put it above a number of bad
Noah,
movies.
how does this compare to Girl in the Spider's Web for you?
we'll have
that
to get to that
indicates
in
my
ratings.
answer. But
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're gonna find that out shortly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Let's finish the story.
yeah.
Let's move this thing along.
Yeah,
By the,
we're almost
before we
done.
move along, in this area, this Chernobyl area, they introduce, or you see this bald, big Russian guy.
Yeah.
And you're like, John McClane's gonna fight this guy.
Oh yeah.
You think?
And it's like, this is gonna be Battle of the Balds. Like
Yeah.
I was like, there's gonna be some big throwdown. That guy gets killed by a CGI explosion.
yeah, dude. Oh, I hate that.
Bruce Willis had malaria.
This
Oh my
movie, this
gosh.
movie had more CG than any other Die Hard movie.
Oh, easy.
That's not something to be, I mean, it's a modern movie, so to speak.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
I don't
You can't fault it for
anticipate
that.
it
So-
not
so-
having CG.
So I agree, CG not bad, but whenever you have a series of movies in which everything is practical, you're dealing with the everyman, which is John McClane, and the whole point, like the whole premise of this series is to be, I mean, like there are a
supposed to
lot
be
of things
real.
that are outrageous, but most of the time he's doing things that a human can do.
Right.
Like you're
it's
trying to
Like enter
want
into
to
the
be
reactor
practical.
4 sarcophagus unprotected for more than 12 minutes.
Like
It happens.
So I know what you're saying though, and it's kind of a similar problem that I had with Die Hard 2. Although Die Hard 2 I think did it really well, where it's just the action feels very different. You don't feel like this is a real situation. It
Yeah.
feels very fanciful.
Yeah.
You had
Yeah.
Holly Gennaro anchoring that movie from an emotional standpoint. though.
Right.
Well, like here's the thing though, they did things that you knew couldn't really happen that way, but they didn't even like make John McClane do anything really crazy either. Like, I mean, he hangs from a chopper for a minute, but like that, it like technically that's possible.
I don't want to get
There,
into it too
there
much
were
more.
a couple highlights where he does have that resourcefulness versus the new school.
Right.
Where he bribes the guy trying to get into the hotel instead of, trying to figure out how to get around him and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And that gets him in. And then he like somehow manages to get the keys to the Bentley instead of trying to pick the lock or something like that.
Right.
Oh,
Like,
I kinda
those were
like that.
appreciated and needed to be more to actually, harken back to McClane's character.
Right.
Yeah.
And the old school, street smarts versus the new school. But we didn't get that much. But I get what you're saying. Like, he's still human. He's not a superhuman. But unfortunately, that was lost for me just because of the story.
Right.
So, getting us on track again with where we're at, which I'm assuming is Chernobyl, and they're uncovering this, there is a point where they decide to neutralize the radiation. I feel like this needs to be talked about at least a little bit.
With
You
LED lights.
cannot.
Radiation.
You cannot neutralize radiation the way they are doing. I don't think there is a way to do it, but definitely not the way they're doing it. They're
Okay, so
spraying things.
Someone should tell the Ukrainian government.
Yeah.
So if you can neutralize radiation, frickin' Chernobyl would not be a center of
They're just
radiation
like,
anymore.
they're like walking around like, oh, this has radiation. Spray it a little bit. Oh, good, we're good to go.
It's been neutralized.
It's neutralized.
Unfortunately, this is not a science podcast, though, so
Yeah,
we
no.
can't quite
I looked it
diagnose
up.
whether or not that's a
I
thing.
looked it up.
You did?
I have the science, like the true science behind it, but I know it's definitely not possible.
Dude, I believe that. I believe that.
If you do 5 seconds of research, if you type in like neutralize radiation Die Hard, there is a number
So-
of pages that come up about this.
From what I understand, the issue with the radiation or residual radiation here in Chernobyl is not actually as bad as you would think it is. Like, you could survive out there for if you were going
Depends
to do
on
whatever
where you are.
operation it is. Yeah. But it's like I think this is just something that is adding to the pile of unnecessary stuff that they spent energy on. Like that's not the kind of movie this is. You don't need a radiation neutralizer. You just focus on what this movie should be, and it's turning it into some other beast. And that's what my issue with it is. If it were another kind of movie, that would not bother me at all, because like Marvel gets away with pseudoscience all the time. Like
Yeah.
there's I can't really judge it for
Yeah,
that.
it's the problem that
Yeah.
McClane is rooted in realism, and now we're at this, which
Right.
is very unreal.
I feel like we talked about in the beginning, this is kind of trying to be a James Bond movie.
Yeah.
This is almost like Chernobyl's almost like the Arecibo, where he's on the giant satellite dish, which rip Arecibo right now. But yeah, it's like, it's big. It's a buzzword, Chernobyl. Like,
Right.
yeah, I get it. They're trying to be this draw, but like we've said before, there's no build up to this. There's no natural flow of progression to where they're at now. It's just all of a sudden, this was his end goal, is to make money by getting all of the uranium that's just sitting around at the old Chernobyl plant.
Also,
Right.
there's
No one
there's
has
no
just,
there's no like
cleaned up or anything.
you would think in a movie like this there'd be some glorification of the location that they're at. It's like, oh, this is Chernobyl, but there's barely any visual of that there is. It's like, yeah, we're at Chernobyl, but I don't feel it really.
Can you give me a landmark, Reese, of what the everyday person would know is Chernobyl?
the big silos.
I'm sorry, but I don't know that. I've heard about Chernobyl. I don't have a visual idea in my head of what Chernobyl is.
Do you know what a nuclear reactor, the cooling towers, like he said?
Yeah,
the
lead
steam
rods or
collecting-
something. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's enough for me to know it's Chernobyl, and
Right.
I agree with Irina. We don't need like a detail of this is how they neutralized it. I think it's the final nail in the coffin of like if they led us up to this point where we're okay for a fantastical journey, and they end up at some fantastical place, like this is a big part of the movie, okay. But since everything else has been just dumb, and now they're at Chernobyl, it's like okay, that's just terrible.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I'd have no problem with them dealing with that in some like dumb, fantastic way. But they make, like Reese said, they make no real note of it. What does it matter that they're at Chernobyl? It doesn't. Like, why are they at Chernobyl? It doesn't make sense. They could just.
Well, no,
they
definitely
have
a
the
reason.
uranium or whatever.
Yeah, that's
It's
why.
supposed to be the name draw, and it's supposed to be like pushing this movie to another
Yeah.
level, like a James Bond movie. That's
But
what they're
why-
after. I guarantee it.
Buzzword.
Yeah,
But the dumb thing about having it at Chernobyl is that's probably like a place that they're, the Russian government's keeping an eye on. Why would you not just outsource your uranium to somewhere else?
Well, no, this uranium has been there since Chernobyl was there. He was involved since the beginning. It's been there since the 80s.
All right. Well,
Okay.
we could go back and forth on this forever.
Right.
But we do have to finish this story. This movie definitely has uranium Chernobyl problems. Let's just leave it at that.
getting the uranium.
All right. At this point, John and Jack enter the vault, discover Kamarov's true plot, and capture him. Irina, with another henchman, comes to her father's aid. As they attempt to escape, Jack follows Komarov, while John goes after Irina, who is escaping in a helicopter. Irina tries to protect her father by firing the helicopter's guns at Jack. John is able to bring the helicopter out of balance by driving a truck out of the hangar section, still shackled by a chain, via the open rear ramp. He is later thrown off into the building. Komarov remarks that Jack will get to watch his father die, prompting Jack to hurl him off the rooftop into the path of the spinning helicopter rotors, killing him. As Jack and John reunite inside the building, Irina tries to avenge her father by ramming the helicopter, now out of ammunition, into the building in a suicide attack. John and Jack survive by leaping off the building into a large pool of water as the helicopter crashes and explodes, killing Irina. Sorry, Irina.
Yeah. That's
How
all right.
many? Okay, they says Irina so many times.
I know.
Yeah.
This is honestly, we get these from Wikipedia and they're terrible, but it's better than toiling away writing our own summary of this.
Wait, who is that?
Irina.
Irina.
Oh.
Which is so weird
I
having
was
somebody in our
confused.
group
I'm not
named
done yet.
Irina.
In the end, the McClanes return home and reunite with Lucy on the tarmac. Another scene I did not get to see in this film.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
Oh,
It's-
did you-
I don't know if it's because it wasn't in this edition or if I just checked out and didn't care about the ending.
Probably the latter.
Okay, I definitely remember that, but I imagine you watched the extended cut then.
Yeah. So we've already kind of gone into a lot of this when we were discussing the previous plot point. But yeah, basically Yuri is the bad guy. We all knew that.
Can I
Kills some
summarize a little
people.
bit?
Yeah, go for it.
Helicopter scene. Yuri's daughter is trying to kill the McClanes, and then John McClane drives a car off the side of it to drag it down. Somehow they get it off, and then she's like, I'm just going to go ahead and kill them because they killed my dad, so I'm just going to fly this helicopter, suicide style, into a building to kill them. And then they drop and they fall into a
And
pool.
she watches them slow motion jump out of the building
Yes.
while she's killing herself.
So this whole sequence it literally reminded me of like a video game boss battle.
It
like in one of those
does. So much.
side-scrolling shooter games when there's always that helicopter level. And the
Yes.
helicopter is strafing back and forth, just like riddling the building with bullets. Like that is what this felt like.
You remember Jack 2 with that
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
that specific I can't remember what the villain's name was, but he was in like this
No, he was in
flying
that chair.
vehicle.
Yeah.
The chair, yeah. Yep.
So this is making me look really fondly on the previous movie where I think I almost prefer that kind of ending more. Live Free or Die Hard.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's this whole time you're kind of playing the battlefield at a distance from the enemy, but in the final showdown, there's this very visceral face-to-face interaction
Yeah.
where you're all like, oh, is he going to get out of this sort
Yeah, it
of
was
thing?
like a
Yeah.
standoff. It was like a
Exactly.
Western, you know.
And this one just kind of felt like, oh, everything just goes up in flames by chance. All the villains die, and we are alive
Yeah.
after the scuffle. So I don't feel any depth of emotion there. I don't feel any tension. I don't even feel rewarded by their victory. It's just, oh, okay,
Yeah.
they're alive.
Hey, but at least that guy gets thrown into a helicopter rotor. That was
Okay, that was cool. I did when that happened. I was like, yeah,
that was
saw
the
it coming,
first
but I enjoyed it.
moment in this movie that was, you know, advertised as like, okay, cool, Die Hard is back to being rated R. And that was the first moment that like actually struck me as, okay, there's like a rated R scene.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, that was the yippee-ki-yay moment, not the earlier
Yes,
part.
yeah,
Yeah, there's people that get shot in the head and there's a bullet hole in their forehead.
Right.
And yeah, that's like just above PG-13, but finally you have this moment that distinguishes itself from a PG-13 with, you know, a guy getting chopped up by a helicopter blade. But that's it. That's literally it. That's all
Yeah.
you get. But yeah, satisfying. But I also think this is the point where the movie just totally overdoes it with the slow motion. There's so much of it here. Mm-hmm. You start to wonder, is that them being like, the movie's really short, we should just slow-mo this scene?
Right.
I gotta say though, they make an hour and a half feel like 2.5 hours. I don't know how they do it.
Yeah,
but
the
they did
pacing
it.
is somehow worse than all of the other ones. The movie's actually kind of boring.
Endgame feels like a breeze compared to this.
Yeah, but that's because it's a culmination of so many stories and characters that you care about that you're like, every little bit of that movie is like candy.
I guess. I don't know. This movie, it luckily, an hour and a half felt perfect. When it was over, I was like, yeah, okay. I'm glad it's over.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like it did too much. If it went for 2 hours,
No, I guarantee
I
you-
don't know if I would have finished it.
David, I guarantee you, if this movie had been 2 hours long and the extra 30 minutes was given to character development and building of relationships, it would feel shorter than the movie we got.
Okay, that's fair.
Well,
That
especially
is
since
very
there was so much opportunity to edit out stuff we saw anyway.
Yeah. So, do we have any other thoughts on this final action sequence? The I guess twist of Yuri, even though we already kind of discussed it.
Well, I guess we could
Well-
briefly talk about the dad moment.
McClane discovering or figuring out that Kamarov is, you know, two-faced or whatever, that was a little underwhelming as well. Like,
Right.
again, with McClane's character, you want him to be still, you know, trying to struggle, but in the end, succeed and by his own wits and
Yeah.
everything, his own resourcefulness. Like
And
him
they
just
should've-
like,
they should've
oh, there's
set
a
up-
dead body. You're a traitor the whole time. Like, okay.
Yeah, and they should have set up Kamarov as, you know, this likable guy that you're like kind of rooting for throughout the movie, but he's kind of just a nothing burger.
Yeah.
Throughout the whole thing, so it's like when he does turn, it's like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
that's wow, okay, I don't care.
I agree. There was
but
about zero depth.
You
in
know-
character.
Well, and I
Just-
think his performance was good
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
what he was written.
But the straw that broke the camel's back was the fact that he used John McClane and his son.
Yep, and now they're going to mess him
Now
up.
we're gonna put a whooping on you.
Yep, I was completely like flatlining throughout most of this movie. Just okay, I was dead to this movie the whole time. But the moment his son, they have that heart to heart before they go in, and they actually do have kind of a like in tandem action sequence where they're taking out a couple people. I was like, okay, cool. I can kind of get on board with, you know, this partnership, and now they're finally seeing kind of eye to eye. I just wish it was set up a lot better than what we got here.
Oh, yeah.
Like under better direction, I feel like this could have actually been a good movie.
Right.
But it's I did feel a little something here. It was fine, but
Well, they did pretty good with that. Well, I don't know about pretty good, but I thought that there was no problem with their whole father-son dynamic.
But it's forgettable.
Right.
Look
yeah,
back on
I
this
mean-
movie a month from now, and you'll remember the other Die Hard movies more than this one.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, you're right, but for me, it's not as bad. Like, if you look on a spectrum, there are things that are negative and positive, and that errs on the barely positive side rather than the mostly negative. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
yeah. And also
Compared
as,
to what's around it in the movie.
yeah.
Yeah.
Also, as dumb as this finale, this final set piece is, I was entertained by it to a degree. It's really like by the numbers in terms of action sequences, but there's just enough whiz bang, fun effects, and just ridiculousness that I wasn't bored by it.
Right.
But I also don't feel like it felt like a Die Hard movie
It
at all.
didn't
did
really.
not.
Oh, it
was just,
didn't. Yeah,
it was
you're
just
right.
straight out of something else. But
Jason Bourne.
still, it was like I did perk up a little bit at this set piece. So for whatever that's
Well,
worth.
it's interesting that you say that because I felt like this last set piece was more by the book for framing shots
Yes.
than some of the other shots in the movie.
Agreed.
And it was familiar, but it was also routine and, kind of traditional cliche action. But
Yeah.
it was the highlight because you're actually able to focus on what's going on
Exactly.
instead of all the handycam garbage in the beginning.
Yeah, I agree. It was more, controlled. But yeah, what do we feel about the closing moments of this movie?
I did appreciate the callback to Hans Gruber's falling out the window.
Yeah.
Conrad, the slow motion falling out. That was a highlight, and I appreciated that.
So the final moments of this movie are, McClane and Jack kind of getting out of the rubble. They had jumped into the pool, another extremely lucky situation, and they, wipe themselves off and
Well, we have our Jack going, Dad! Dad!
Yeah.
And
Daddy.
meanwhile, he's like outside the pool already, just like, yeah? What's up?
I just love to imagine that he was holding out to wait to see if he would actually call him dad.
Okay,
Just call
so
me Dad.
quick,
I guess.
real quick, what was the point of that? Like, why was he out of the water? I thought I clearly saw
No.
them both fall in
They
the water.
did. He just got out earlier. You didn't
Yeah.
see
Yeah. What was?
no, that's what David was saying. He was like, oh, maybe he was listening for him to actually call him
Right.
dad, and
He got
It's
out.
just-
He got out of the water faster,
water.
and he was just sitting there waiting. And he heard him calling him. He's like, "Hey, I'll just let him struggle a little bit."
That
Wait
was
for
the
him to
real
call me
plot
dad.
twist.
Dude,
John McClane set this whole thing up just so his son would come back to him.
that's the story. Just so his son would call him dad.
there you
So
go.
just a
There you
very
have it.
intricate gaslighting
I'll
attempt.
I'll win every single one of my family members eventually. I just have to save the world every time.
Yep.
But yeah, I thought it felt odd to me.
It was
Him-
weird.
Like you see them both fall into the water, then they don't
just-
show him getting out of the water.
Yeah.
It was
but he's suddenly
anticlimactic
out
or
of it.
climactic. There you go.
Yeah.
No,
It was a
you had the
little
right
off.
word. It was anticlimactic.
Yeah.
Yeah, my whole issue with this movie really is just there's just not enough time spent building these characters. And
Yeah.
you get little instances of little moments where it's
Yeah.
like, okay, I kind of like that. And at the ending moment here, they're walking away from the blaze, and you get a nice little banter. But you're like, oh, so it is possible that y'all can do this. Y'all just decided not to for some reason.
Yeah.
And that's frustrating to me because it's like the writing team was able to create a dynamic that would make sense in a Die Hard film, but
Right.
they actively decided to do something different. And it's like, yeah, you have these moments between
Yeah.
these characters that work. And, they nail it in those like 30-second increments. But then they're also just throwing a smoke screen at you the rest of the time, like, hey, don't worry about that. Here's action.
Right.
I feel
often,
like that's a directorial thing with more. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, that's a cool shot. That's a cool shot. Let's put that in. That's a cool
Right.
shot. Oh, let's do this. This is. Oh, that's sappy. Let's come on, move on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's
So-
just
Get
sad.
back to the action.
I also wonder if sometimes with movies like this where you're having to pick up where others left off, you feel this almost intimidation where you feel like you have to give something really big to
Yeah.
follow in the footsteps of the movies that came before. So a lot of people try, or a lot of directors, it feels like they try to overcompensate by, oh, we just need more action.
the
It needs
ante.
to be more McClane, or and in doing so, they miss the mark and they don't realize the heart of why people actually loved it in the first place. So
John McClane on the
yeah.
moon.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the next one.
Dude, I would love to see that.
All right. Let's close out the story here. And on the other end, after the break, we're going to get into this franchise. We'll give our brief reviews with numbered scores, get into critics, do some box office, and then talk about where this franchise is at. This is the last film, so does this franchise have a future? Stay tuned. All right, welcome back. We're here to talk about A Good Day to Die Hard, the last film in the Die Hard franchise.
And the real question is it a good day?
It might be a good day to die.
Look, I
That
just
was a
like,
really good
I
follow-up,
like
actually.
dying hard.
David, you got our scores in a little bowl there. You want to pull them at random?
I think I might want to do that. All right, let's see who's first. Oh, I go first.
Yay.
It's David with a 4.
Hey, okay.
Oh.
This was slightly difficult to score because I did not quite like this movie. It is not a terrible movie.
Gosh darn it, it didn't have frickin' Yetis in it.
It didn't.
Yeah, where were the freaking Yetis? Where was the football?
Honestly, it's Russia. Could have had hockey at least.
David, who notoriously gave
Tomb of
The Mummy and Tomb of the Dragon Emperor a 7
7
out of 10.
All
All right, continue.
Yeah, there we go. So 3 points lower than that with a 4. This one is It failed on many levels. The beginning lost me immediately. The shaky cam, the fast-paced action that had nothing to do with anything. It just was hard. And maybe because I really don't dislike the actors all that much, I think that John McClane is a character that can make it through this movie no matter how stupid he is, which this is about the lowest of the low that I've seen.
I wouldn't say stupid, but
He's not smart, that's for sure.
he's in the right place at the right time. I'll just say that. Instead of the wrong place at the wrong time.
It
And
could be a
At least
little
he's
bit of both.
self-aware.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know. I just think that it's overall not a bad time. I could get through it. Luckily, I think an hour and a half is the perfect amount of time to not feel like you're wasting your time. I don't know.
It's the bearable length for something like this.
It skidded by, and I think 4 counts. It's like, it's not good enough to be a 5 or it's 50-50. It's definitely lower than that. It skids by.
Yeah.
Like, it's one more...
Skids by. That feels like a dramatic finish. I think you mean like scrapes by?
I think it's very similar. I think that a 4 is 5 is like, I take it or leave it. 4 is, you barely got my attention.
Yeah.
Next up is Reese with a 3.5.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's so low because I just think it just drags through the mud everything that makes a good Die Hard movie. Die Hard 2, I originally thought was like the nadir of this franchise, where it was just like, this is not John McClane.
Yeah, I agree.
It's still a fun movie. It's an action romp. But after seeing this film, I was really like, okay, Die Hard 2 at least gets some of the basic principles of what makes these movies work. Die Hard on a Plane. It is a remake of the first film in a different location. This one it's a spy thriller that doesn't carry over any of the charm from the previous 4 movies. It wants you to care because there's this father-son dynamic, but they don't give any attention to, their relationship. There's none of these downtime moments that I've been harping on that this movie needs to really establish this connection between these two characters. Jai Courtney, I don't think he's terrible in this, but he's definitely not doing anything that makes me, interested in what is going on in Jack or John McClane Jr.'s life. And it just ends up being a paint-by-the-numbers action movie with the Die Hard name. That if you took Die Hard away and took out, some of the, the names that you recognize from that franchise, this would just be another just typical action movie that doesn't amaze in any way. I do think a couple of the action sequences are decent. The big car chase sequence has a a few moments that I perked up at. Like I liked seeing a couple of those cars flip. That one car that goes into the flies off the bridge and hits the
It was like some
cylindrical
sort of
thing.
concrete pillar thing.
Yeah, that was kind of cool. And then the helicopter boss fight at the end, it was all right.
Yeah.
And that's the only reason this movie earns itself anything at all. That and that one moment at the end between Jack and John where they kind of, have this moment where it's like, okay, yeah, I do love you, Dad. I do love you, son. And that kind of worked for me as well. Right. But this movie really doesn't have any reason to exist. It doesn't progress the franchise further in any way. It doesn't innovate. It's the most filler sequel of this whole franchise, and I can't wait to forget it and move on to whatever's next. So there it is, 3.5.
All right, that's fair. Moving on to Age Hay at a whopping 2.5.
Whoa.
So
Nice.
I had to put some separation between Die Hard 2 and this one. So that kind of edged it down a little bit.
Right.
But I honestly don't feel bad because I don't really find much redemption in this movie at all. It doesn't need to exist. It's not a Die Hard movie. It could be an action movie, but the story is terrible. The dialogue is terrible. Redemptive value is that there's stuff here that could be edited into a decent movie if you also rewrote some story. But it's like I said a couple times, like this is basically someone taking a bunch of cool shots and just throwing it all out there instead of actually shaping it and molding it and editing it properly. And hoping that the audience is just like, okay, that's cool. But it's not a Die Hard movie. We don't get the John McClane we saw. And I know that we've digressed since Die Hard, the original, from the confined, claustrophobic cat and mouse chase. I wish we got more of that. This is basically completely opposite. Like, I think Irena made the comment that for Die Hard 2, it felt like it's too scattered because it's all over the place as far as setting goes, and it doesn't feel true to the original. But at least that one had character and heart. You still got, the John McClane story in there. This one, you're across the country just for the sake of throwing Chernobyl in there. And Irena also made this apt description or comparison that I completely agree with to the girl in the spider's web. And ironically, I gave that the same score, 2.5, I believe. That one I will, kind of walk back a little bit. I was pretty harsh on that because it followed, almost a masterpiece of the first one.
Right.
But the same criticism applies, and they tried to make this into a James Bond movie, and I said that about Spider's Web. And the same thing here is they basically took the franchise, squeezed all of the interesting heart about it, character, everything, and just distilled it into pure action and put that on a screen. And I think that's exactly what we got here in this same case here. So I think 2.5 is fair. I barely made it through this movie despite all of the action because of its lack of focus and direction. And I probably will never watch this again willingly or in its full runtime. So
the only way I could see myself watching this again is if there is ever a Die Hard 6 and it happens to be a masterpiece. And just because of my OCD, me having to watch every film in the franchise to do the run of it, that's the only way I could see seeing this again.
Yeah, and I actually think that Courtney's performance was okay. And oddly enough, I think if you take Bruce Willis out of this movie, let's take Jack from this movie, Komarov, and Lucy, because it's Mary Elizabeth Winstead. Put them in another movie with a completely different story, with similar performances, and, make an action movie out of it with some different take on something. I would probably watch that and it'd probably turn out okay. And, part of the reason that this is so low for me is because it's supposed to be a Die Hard movie, not a generic action movie. Mm-hmm. And it's not. It doesn't fit with the franchise, and it's just generic bleh action that is there for making money.
Yep.
So,
exactly.
Yeah. I am
Totally
not
filler.
sorry about panning this movie at all.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, Noah with a 4.5. We're all in a pretty decent range here, I think.
Yeah, we're all in a pretty similar range, and I will actually take that down a 0.5 notch to bring it to a 4.0.
Hanging out with David in the 4.
Yeah. I didn't think this movie was the absolute worst it could have been. I think that it is the most superficial you could possibly be with a Die Hard movie, and that's not a good thing. But as far as its kind of formulaic self, it on paper isn't the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't mind the father-son aspect of the movie. I know y'all are aware of that by now.
Right.
In addition to that, I don't think there was anything that, as far as the acting goes, that really bothered me. I think the acting was decent, so that at least gets that aspect up to a 5.0, because nothing really thrilled me, but nothing was outright bad about it. But there is a lot of issues as far as plot goes, and jumbling things up, and pacing was not great, and I don't know, overall it isn't the greatest Die Hard, for sure. In fact, it's the worst Die Hard that there is.
Yeah.
So I'll keep it with a 4.0, and we'll continue on.
All right. Next up, Irina with a 4.0.
Yeah,
Very
so
consistent.
lower than my scoring for Spider's Web, which we had brought up before. And that's because at least Spider's Web was easier to follow. This movie is just visually very confusing. And Spider's Web, I can at least recall what was happening and why. I'm having trouble coming up with other things to add that you guys all haven't already mentioned. And I am sorely tempted to bring it down to 3.5, but I think I'll stick with the 4 because most of that is going to the special effects team and a lot of the really cool shots that happened in this film. Like, I think most of my scoring is going towards those on set trying to make it happen.
Yeah.
But, and as you guys have mentioned, what's his name?
Jai Courtney?
Jai Courtney, sorry. Jai Courtney, I was expecting a more wooden performance, and he started selling his character later in the film, I think as it was aligning with who he is as an actor. I think this kind of teenage, I don't care, you're not my father, is just not a natural portrayal. And that's why it looked,
For a CIA
it
agent
seemed
or
so
intelligence
strange.
operative.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like a lot of the decisions made in this film weren't the fault of a lot of the actors, except maybe Bruce Willis, who seemed just kind of tired and going through the paces. But yeah, I don't think I can add much more than that, and I think I'll stick with the 4.
All right. With all those reviews in the can, AJ, you want to crunch those numbers there?
So we have a group average of 3.6, which
All right.
is just below The Girl in the Spider's Web at 3.8.
All right.
And-
That is very, appropriate for this movie.
Okay, so if we're being honest, I do think that Girl with the Spider's Web is worse than this movie.
I disagree.
I don't think so. I
Yeah.
disagree.
And it's
I
like
don't know.
Irina
We
said,
need
it
to
had
rewatch it.
direction. It had a fairly linear plot that actually somewhat made sense.
It's just...
But it was so ridiculous.
Yeah, because it was contrasted against a movie that took itself dead
Yeah.
seriously.
Right.
Yeah.
That is exact. It betrayed its source material more than this did.
Okay. Well,
Anyway.
fair enough.
And that's
AJ.
above Queen of the Damned at 3.3. So
Okay.
it's actually second to last on our list, only above Neverending Story 2 at a 1.5.
I'm okay with that placement. I think
Yeah.
that sounds right.
I'd watch Queen of the
yeah.
Damned over this.
To me, it is so tragic that this
I'm sorry, I
franchise
misspoke.
has-
It's third to last.
Okay.
Third to last, okay.
It is so upsetting that this franchise
Yeah.
has such a solid track record for the first 4,
And then
this one just
Trash.
kneecaps it. I'm very curious, AJ, to see what our overall franchise average is. What was it before, and what was it after the A Good Day to Die Hard?
So right now it's a 7.3 with all 5 movies included. But yeah, it's such a far cry because I gave the first one a 10 unexpectedly. I don't think it's a perfect movie, but you know, there's a lot to be said for that. So 7.3 accounting for the fifth movie. The first four movies are an 8.2. So I'd say that's
almost almost one whole point
Yeah.
detracted because of this movie.
Wow.
That's
and
that's
that's
a blow.
still including that I'm still an outlier myself for the second movie.
Yeah.
Right.
Dude, that's
So-
actually really annoying because I almost don't consider this a Die Hard movie.
I know. All right, let's see what the critics and audiences thought of this movie. On Rotten Tomatoes, this movie has easily the lowest score of the franchise.
I would hope so.
By far. Like, it's not even close.
Yeah.
So the second lowest is 59% for Die Hard with a Vengeance. This one has a 14% on Rotten Tomatoes with an audience score of 40%. So this is actually, I believe, the first movie that the audience went full on, like, turned on it. Like,
Yeah.
all the other ones have positive audience scores. This one way down there at 40%. So it's overwhelmingly negative for A Good Day to
Right.
Die Hard. On Metacritic, this is also the first one to be, fully in the red. And that's red equals bad, just so you know.
Opposed to the red equals good.
Yeah. 28 out of 100 on Metacritic with an audience score of 4.5 out of 10. And on IMDb, this movie has a rare score that's like under a 6.0. It has a 5.3 on IMDb. So this movie is pretty much reviled everywhere you look. There are certain, there's the outlier that will defend this movie that, I'm not going to say there's nobody that doesn't like this movie. There are certain people out there that are like, oh yeah, not a bad movie. And it did get, 14% positive. So that means 14% of critics did come out of this movie enjoying it to some degree.
Right.
So it's not a 0%.
Yeah.
So 14% of people put it over 50%.
Exactly. Something like that, more or less. But yeah, this movie was not received well by critics at all. So far we are in line with our reviews and critics, so it's kind of all lining up
Yeah.
here.
And I don't know that any of us really hammered on, well, at least in my opinion, how poor of delivery Willis was in his lines. Like, if you went
Yeah.
and got
Yeah,
a
it
YouTube cut
wasn't
of
great.
every line that Willis did in this movie, there's probably a couple
he's
that are
so-
okay.
Yeah.
I'm on vacation. I'm on vacation. I'm supposed to be on vacation.
Do you think
I'm
I
just on
understand what
vacation.
you're saying?
Hey, guess what, Arena?
What?
I'm on vacation.
Oh, wow. I have no idea.
Wait, how many times did you say
And
that?
He
well,
said it
not
like
only
6
writing,
times
but
at least.
delivery too. So it's like,
Yeah.
No, I know.
It's,
I
yeah.
agree.
It's really sad.
No, this is the first movie he seemed kind of checked out on.
Yeah.
Even though apparently when he was doing press for this movie, he was like super excited for it. But
That's
whatever.
kinda
It's not
sad.
evident in his performance. All right, let's move on to box office. This movie released on February 14th, 2013. It released against the movies Safe Haven, Escape from Planet Earth, and that YA movie, Beautiful Creatures. It was also competing against Identity Thief and Warm Bodies, which had been in theaters for a week or a couple of weeks.
Oh gosh, that was that long ago.
it's funny
Yeah,
because
this
I don't
movie's
remember any of those
7
other
years ago.
titles either.
Man,
I love Warm Bodies.
Warm Bodies is
yeah.
good.
The thing is, for whatever reason, my mind thinks of Warm Bodies as a semi-recent thing.
Yeah, and Safe Haven I remember as well. That was a Denzel Washington, Ryan
Gosh.
Reynolds movie. Beautiful Creatures, I also remember that one. That one has Emmy Rossum in it, remember?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I never watched it because she had a really weird southern twang
Yeah.
going on. And I don't
Ah,
know.
why?
It didn't look great.
But this movie was budgeted at $92 million.
Huh.
Guys, you want to give
All right.
me your box office predictions worldwide for A Good Day to Die Hard? Let's. I'm gonna go with you last this time, Noah,
Okay.
because you're always kind of boxed in there. I'm gonna give you the
Sure.
opportunity to.
Wait, doesn't this box me in more?
No, you will get
Okay.
You decide where you want to go.
exactly.
Yeah.
You were the most
Fair
You get to
free
do the
in this
$1,
one.
Bob.
Yeah. So let's start with AJ this time. Worldwide.
Let's say February 250.
250. Okay. Arena.
I don't know. Let's go with 300. Let's bump that up.
All right. David.
I think this movie sucked, so I think I'm going to aim lower than normal. I'm going to go with 150.
All right. And Noah.
Dang, I'm actually with David on this one. I do think that it made probably exactly like 180, 170, somewhere around there.
All right,
All
pick
right.
one. Pick one because we need it.
180. We'll go 180. Like exactly double, but not enough for them to want to do another. But they will.
Yeah.
Still.
All right, Arena, you're almost exactly on the money.
Really? Dang it.
Oh.
See,
I hate
okay, this
myself.
was my reasoning. Just because the previous one was probably received really well, and they were excited for another one.
Yep. It made 304 million. Rounded up to actually 305 million.
Nice.
You
Look
guessed
at
300 million. You're the
Aaron.
winner.
Hey, Arena.
Oh.
All right. Good job.
Eventually,
I know.
AJ, we need you to go back and like count up every single episode on who won this.
Yeah, just get on that, AJ. I know you're not busy.
You got it.
Crunch those numbers.
Crunch those numbers, AJ. I need that now.
Joke's on you. He's been doing it
I
every
mean,
episode.
honestly, I should have added that field to the Excel sheet a long time ago.
No, you're totally good. We don't necessarily need that.
But if you get
All
it
right.
wrong too many times, you're off the podcast.
Wait, so Reese is off the podcast?
So,
Because he never actually
He
guesses.
never participates?
so this movie cost 92 to 94 million, made 305 million. You would think, hey,
Yeah.
it tripled its budget. Should be a sequel, right?
No.
No,
Not
not
at
a
all.
sequel. This is one of those rare cases where the critical reviews were just so bad that it has literally just kind of put this franchise on stasis for the longest amount of time. Like, there has been, back and forths about doing something with it, and I do think eventually this franchise will come back.
They will. I know they will.
Okay,
I
so
know.
this is like an Indiana Jones situation, I think, where it's gonna be a moneymaker no matter what you do. It's been out long enough, people know about it. Just like Indiana Jones, Crystal Skull, it came out, critics bashed it.
Yeah.
And
well,
they're like,
no.
Oh, what?
Critics
Oh.
did not bash that movie,
Are you-
surprisingly.
are you
It
kidding
was
me?
more just audiences that hated it.
I think
that
that's
movie
the
actually has
same,
like
though.
a 78% on Rotten
But we
Tomatoes.
all know
kidding
it's
me?
actually
I'm not
terrible.
kidding you. That movie's actually kind of well received
I
by
still
critics.
put it in the same ballpark where after they saw the reaction to it, regardless critics or audience, they're just like, we got to take a step back.
Rotten
and rethink
Tomatoes
this
78%, Metacritic 65%.
Yeah,
Sure,
no.
what I would
Here,
think.
here, it has its defenders. It's like
Yeah.
it's a Star Wars Phantom Menace situation where it's like, oh, that movie was. Most people think like, oh, what did that do to Star Wars? It killed it.
Yeah.
But there's those defenders out there. I would say there's a number of people that stick up for Indiana Jones 4 or Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, whatever you want to call it. This one just
Trash.
unanimously hated. Pretty
All
much.
right, I thought it was in the same ballpark.
Now-
You're
you
kind of right,
surprised
though.
me.
Harrison Ford has a different type of draw and power than Bruce Willis does.
Yeah.
So I think that
You're-
might
you're on
account
the
for
right-
some of it.
You're on the right track, though, David. There is a bad taste in the mouth when you think of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. And I do think that's why we haven't seen an Indiana Jones sequel for so long. I also think it's because Steven Spielberg is just like, I don't want to do a fifth one just yet. Like, he's interested in other things.
You really think it's Spielberg?
I think it's mostly Spielberg. I think if he wanted to do an Indiana Jones at a certain time, it would happen.
Okay, if
'Cause
you
he
have
just-
a major director like Spielberg, if Spielberg wanted to do anything, everyone would jump
Yeah,
on
he
board.
has so much swaying power. He can do whatever he wants at this point, I
Yeah,
feel
that's
like.
fair.
But yeah, this one I feel like it's more just they're waiting for, all of the memory of A Good Day to Die Hard to kind of just die down. Just give it a lot of space. There was a time when Lynn Wiseman, the director of the fourth film, was pitching this idea of a movie, and Noah, you hinted at this earlier, called a John McClane.
Whoa, actually?
Yes.
Dang,
It was going to be
I'm a
called
genius.
Yeah, it was going to be called John McClane, and it was going to be a film
Dude.
that tackled both young and old John McClane at the same time. It would be old John McClane reflecting back on his days as like a beat cop, and you'd be flashing back to the past and to the present.
Can I just say, I did zero research, and I just,
You knew.
Well,
you
well,
saw.
it's like it's in the air.
Yeah.
You go back to, you dip back into these franchises and you just name
What
it
else
what
is
it
there
is.
to
They did
do?
it with the Saw. Yeah, they did
Yeah,
did
I
it with the
know,
Saw
right?
franchise. They were like, they're all called Saw, and then they came out with Jigsaw. And then
X-Men, Logan.
Yep, exactly.
Yep.
So that seems like the logical next
does.
move. But then Fox got acquired by Disney.
Oh.
That project was basically nixed for good. And now it's kind of in limbo, but Disney is, kind of working on an idea to bring John McClane.
Yeah.
They're thinking about, this is all speculation and rumor, but they're supposedly rebooting this franchise and working on some sort of television show, which when I read that, I was like, boo! I don't want that. Like, for me, Die Hard is a theatrical experience.
Yeah, it can't be a show.
And it only works with Bruce Willis. Like,
exactly.
No, I
Did
don't
they
want
try to do Lethal Weapon as a show?
Yeah, there is a Lethal Weapon show. I think it got one season and then got canceled.
There's a reason why Solo didn't work.
Yeah, like, you cannot replicate Bruce Willis. It's just impossible. Like, just create something new.
Yeah.
The only thing I can see working for this franchise is, as you said, Noah, doing whatever this John McClane thing is, ending it on a sobering note.
Yeah.
Like, bring this character back to his roots.
To the heart.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's
you
older,
have to
he's
recapture
weary.
the identity of the franchise instead of just what has been gradually becoming more generic.
Right.
Exactly. Like, he cannot be a part of this bombastic action that we're seeing.
Like,
I would be sold on one last adventure with John McClane. Mm-hmm. Just give it to James Mangold.
This summer.
Logan. Like, let him
Shia
handle it.
LaBeouf. No, shake his head.
Get out of here.
maybe not now. He's going through some stuff.
I am really
Yeah,
curious,
yes.
though, why this got a February release, because isn't that where studios push their things that they kind of know are going to fail?
So I would agree with you, but it came out on Valentine's Day, which is usually a big day to take people out to the movies. So they were kind of banking on that being a big weekend. And
So now Die
it
Hard's a
wasn't-
Valentine's Day movie, not a
Yeah,
Christmas
apparently,
movie.
yes,
I guess so.
it is officially a Valentine's
Where's the
Day movie.
Christmas? I didn't see it.
It's of all those. It's all those dates where the guy's like, "No, I'm not gonna watch that rom-com with you. We're watching Die Hard." But yeah, the movie actually didn't do terribly though. So I mean, there's that.
They
It's
made
just,
their money. Get out.
Yeah, financially it's fine. It's just critically just did so poorly.
So, Reese, did it kill the franchise?
I think this franchise has basically had its Achilles tendon cut. Like
Oh.
it's limping. It's pretty much dead.
It's
but
bleeding out.
yeah, but I don't think this is the last of Die Hard we've ever seen.
Yeah.
Like, Die Hard is such a big name that you can't just like
Yeah.
leave it forever.
Well,
yeah.
we've even said
Here's the
like
thing.
there's so many mimics of just the title alone. Like even Bruce Willis action movies like Hard Kill and everything else that harkens back to Die Hard. Like
Yeah.
it's such a pillar in the action genre that
Yeah,
Right.
it's too big to ignore.
Yeah.
It's just going through a severe rough patch.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. The one thing people can really get behind is a finale story. They did a Logan style like finishing Spider-Man story. That would be
Yeah.
amazing. I'd show up for
those
that.
can be
I
very
would
hit
too.
or miss.
Yeah.
We call those Lega sequels. Like, you get Force Awakens where you bring back a couple of key characters. You get Terminator Dark Fate where you bring back
Yeah.
Schwarzenegger and Linda Hamilton.
But if it's
Like, carry on the
if
story.
it's that finishing story, people will show up for it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
he
And
dies, but
I
somehow
agree.
you have his
Because-
son take on the legacy.
If they did that for this, I think that would be a good move.
I think you're right. They would
I
make
also
money.
think a key would to somehow bring back Bonnie Bedelia, who was Holly Gennaro
Yeah.
in the first one.
I agree.
Great.
And if you have to go back to some sort of, basic premise with this, where it's in one location, I feel like we've been far enough removed from the original Die Hard formula that you could bring it back for a closing film.
Right.
As long as it's not too on the nose like Force
Yeah,
Awakens was.
exactly.
Yeah.
Just have this be Die Hard in a hotel or Die Hard in a casino. Like,
Yeah.
that. Bring it back to one location.
Yeah.
It
Small
doesn't
scale,
need to
yeah.
be this,
Yeah.
this blown out worldwide thing.
But you have to make it matter.
Yes, exactly. So there you have it. That's Die Hard, you guys.
Indeed.
Let's quickly do a honorable or dishonorable death on this franchise, and to inform our listeners as to what that is, we are, if Die Hard 5 or A Good Day to Die Hard were the last film in this franchise, is that it ended on a note that you could, it doesn't
Accept.
it doesn't leave anything open that needs to be continued. It ended conclusively. Does this
I hate this one I hate that question on this specific franchise. I feel like that makes it really hard.
Yeah.
Because it has a wholesome end, but it's just not a good
Is it
movie.
the end we need? Is it the end we want? Is it satisfying?
So it is a honorable death, but only it's like a technicality. Like,
Yeah,
it's like-
exactly.
All 4 movies gave it that. If this movie, if it was on its own, would fail.
Yeah, I think solely based on how these movies are self-contained, all of them. There's like very little that carries on from film to film, and each story is kind of just its own thing. Yes, it technically ends conclusively, especially if you watch the theatrical version of this, which I recommend over the extended.
A very rare occasion.
Yeah, where you actually get the freeze frame of John McClane, Jack McClane, and Lucy McClane all together before the credits cut. Yes, it is a conclusive ending to this franchise that works from on paper. It works.
It's the last scene of the movie.
I-
You literally see their family.
I will dissent here. So
Okay.
yes, that one scene does encapsulate a kind of typical wrap it up. This is a picture frame of happy ending. But what we have in the 5th installment here is a complete reversal of John McClane's character, and what little character we see of him is kind of a jerk and just where he just punches random civilians and walks around nonchalantly, like that. We don't see the struggle and the growth and recognition of the mistakes he had and his own character flaws. That the first 4 movies were all building him up to have some kind of learning experience about his own flaws. I don't see that in this movie, and since that is the 5th installment, I feel like that's a reversal of that character that I have known through this franchise. So I say it's a dishonorable death.
I want to agree with you too, because I just can't give this an honorable death. This felt like a kind of a slap in the face for diehard fans, and to go out that way, it also felt like a stepping stone for other movies. Like they anticipated, oh yeah, there's going to be more, and then it was just not received well, so they killed it. I just
So thematically, it is a dishonorable death.
Hold on. I was going to say, we do have 2 honorables voted and 2 dishonorable, and I was going to throw it to Noah to give us the deciding blow.
So here's this is something we haven't had an issue with. Before I throw it back to you, Noah, where it's like, if you look at the plot on paper, yes, it closes out Die Hard on a conclusive note. All the loose ends are wrapped up. There's no like plot that needs resolution, but yet it does walk back a lot of the things that we love about these characters, particularly John McClane, where it's like it almost just opens you up from a emotional standpoint to feeling like, oh yeah, emotionally this is not satisfying. This is not conclusive. This is not McClane. Yeah. So
in addition to your point of it being on paper, plot, no loose ends, I disagree with that as well, because you yourself mentioned we need Holly in another movie, and I feel like she was a key story element too.
That's true.
That was a strong point, and I don't see Holly. Like, we have that picture frame of John and his daughter and his son, but not his wife or his ex-wife.
Right. Okay, you know what? That sways me. I'm willing to just say dishonorable on this.
Yeah.
You're right. There's certain things that I wish it could reintroduce. What?
So, I think it's honestly a 50-50 question, because as far as John McClane is concerned, it's an honorable. He's got his kids. He's considered a decent father as far as they're concerned.
And okay, I will say to you, I also think the relationship between Holly and him was definitively cut off in 4.
Yeah, in the second one,
in the relationship.
In the second one, they were still together. But
the third one actually kind of ruins it more than this one does, because for some reason they're like, nope, they're not together again, and we're not going to talk about it. But there's communication. Third one.
Yeah, in the third one.
But from a numbers standpoint,
most of the movies,
he regains his daughter, his son. What's following?
Yeah, no, I'm actually gonna jump ship here. I'm gonna go to the other side. I do think that there is a reunion missing here.
Yeah,
Holly is a notable absence.
There is. But that doesn't fall within the criteria of the honorable or dishonorable ending, as you've said.
Well, I think the thing they're mentioning is that there's an element missing in this.
Yeah,
they may have wrapped it up, but it's the the fact is they aren't even aware that there's an element missing about
Yeah.
it, and that's why it's dishonorable. And
This-
I think that even with Holly, it wasn't clear cut. In Live Free or Die Hard, it's just kind of assumed, oh yeah, they're not together, they're separated. But in the third one, the final interaction with Holly was her answering the phone to talk to him, but then he abandons it. So it's
Yeah.
just, there's
That's
this
never
open-ended...
resolved. Yeah, they completely phase out the Gennaro
But-
side of this.
Okay. Yes, I agree, but you can't apply that to this one because they left it dry.
I think
in
you
the
can
third
because
one.
I think they had
We're
every
applying it to the
opportunity
franchise,
to at
not
least
this movie.
give
Right.
it-
Okay,
right.
fair enough.
Let's just say this movie's bad. Can we
Yeah,
give it
it's
a
not-
dishonorable?
it's not good.
Let's just give this franchise a
Fair
dishonorable
enough.
death.
Fair enough.
Okay.
It's sad. I'll allow it.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm getting out my stamp with a big old D on it, and I am hitting it. Bam.
You're
We're
hitting
good.
it with that D.
Yep. Hitting it with that D. It's dishonorable.
It's fine. I already had it
Okay.
written down from the beginning.
Okay, so Die Hard franchise is in the can. We still came out overall positive on the entire franchise, so that's good. A Good Day to Die Hard did some serious damage on the overall score, but overall, I think we are pretty much in love with most of these films. So there you go. Die Hard, one of the more consistent franchises in the ones that we've covered, apart from the fifth one, which just totally dropped the ball. Next up on the list, we are taking a
Dive.
we are just completely swerving in a different direction. We're going into the land of animated films for the first time, and that's because
we're
of you,
driving
David.
a car into a helicopter.
New year, new start.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, new year, new me. And David dictates that we are submerging into the world of Atlantis.
Yes. This next mini-series, if you want to call it that, we're talking about kind of ugly duckling animated
Non-Disney.
films.
Yeah.
Yes, that some of them are Disney actually, but they're those.
I like to call them diamond in the rough animation.
Yeah.
Well, you know, the ugly duckling grows into the
Yeah,
beautiful
exactly.
swan.
We shouldn't let them know all of the movies we're doing though.
No,
Can we
we're just
start
going to
a
go into the
count?
first. So we're starting with Atlantis. But all of these films, they're going to be one-offs, each and every one of them. But ones that, wanted to start something new. They were films that were, in our opinion, ambitious, but just weren't seen by enough people. And yeah, that is very indicative with the first film that we're covering, as you said, Atlantis. There's a subtitle on that one, isn't there?
Lost is in
The
there
Lost
somewhere.
Empire?
There you go, the Lost Empire.
Is that
Yeah,
it?
next week we're talking about Atlantis, The Lost Empire. I'm excited, man.
I know. I'm actually amped for all these movies.
Yeah, this is our first time talking about animated films, and we'll see how it goes. With that said, we'll see y'all next episode. Goodbye.
Bye.
Good riddance.
I kind of thought we would just wing it, running in, guns blazing, make it up as we go.